There's a country where the morning rush hour looks like someone kicked over an anthill of motorcycles, where a family of 5, 2 parents and 3 kids rides a single scooter through 6 lanes of traffic and nobody blinks, where you can get a hot bowl of pho delivered to your doorstep by a guy balancing a glass cart on the back of a Honda, weaving through intersections that have no traffic lights, no lane markings, and apparently no rules. That country is Vietnam, and it has more registered motorcycles than some countries have people. 77 million motorbikes, for a population of around 100 million. That's roughly 1 motorcycle for every 1.3 humans in the country. To put that in perspective, if you lined up every registered motorcycle in Vietnam bumper to bumper, the line would wrap around the Earth's equator more than 3.5 times. In Ho Chi Minh City alone, the average household doesn't just own 1 motorbike, they own 2.33 of them. And across the entire nation, 89% of households depend on a motorcycle as their primary form of transportation, according to Vietnam's General Statistics Office. Only 9% own a car. During peak rush hours in Ho Chi Minh City, between 7 and 9 in the morning and 5 and 7 at night, motorcycles make up roughly 85 to 90% of all traffic. Average speeds on main roads drop to about 12 kilometers per hour, which is barely faster than jogging. Journalists from Reuters and Van Express have described the resulting scene as a tidal onslaught of motorcycles and something resembling swarm intelligence. Because somehow, despite the apparent chaos, millions of riders navigate through each other using a shared, unspoken set of rules that no one can quite explain. That was 2024. By July of 2026, the Vietnamese government plans to ban gas-powered motorcycles from central Hanoi. So how did 100 million people become completely dependent on 2 wheels? And what happens when the government tries to take them away? Saigon, 1967. The Vietnam War was tearing the country apart, and the United States was pouring billions into South Vietnam's economy. Part of that money went towards something unexpected: motorcycles, specifically Honda Super Cubs. The U.S. military purchased 20,000 Super Cubs and shipped them to South Vietnam as part of a nation-building campaign, and Honda's Saigon office was overwhelmed by demand. Between 1967 and 1969, approximately 750,000 Honda motorcycles were exported to South Vietnam, almost all of them Super Cubs, financed by American dollars. Each one cost about $300. A former Honda Saigon officer later recalled that some days they received orders totaling more than 10,000 machines, and the head office in Japan had to double-check they had the right number of zeros. The Super Cub was perfect for Vietnam, light enough for the narrow streets, fuel efficient enough for a country with limited gas infrastructure, and so mechanically simple that a teenager could fix one with a wrench and some determination. By the time Saigon fell on April 30th, 1975, hundreds of thousands of cubes were scattered across the South, left behind by departing Americans and embedded into daily Vietnamese life. Then came the embargo. In 1979, the United States imposed a full economic embargo on Vietnam, cutting off all trade, all spare parts, and every new import. For 16 years, the Vietnamese couldn't buy a single official Honda motorcycle. And this is where the story gets wild, because instead of abandoning their Cubs, the Vietnamese became some of the most resourceful motorcycle mechanics on the planet. Local shops fabricated replacement parts from scratch using hand tools and raw metal. Pistons, gaskets, bearings, entire engine components were machined in backyard workshops by mechanics who had never seen an engineering manual. An estimated 20,000 Cubs per year slipped into the country through gray market smuggling channels from Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia. Vietnamese mechanics kept these bikes running for decades, often with hand-machined components that Honda engineers never designed. Some of those original war-era Super Cubs are still on the road today, patched together with 50 years of improvised repairs and running as smoothly as the day they left the Kumamoto factory. Honda's own corporate publications would later call Vietnam Super Cub Paradise. And in October 2017, Honda held a ceremony at their Kumamoto factory in Japan to announce that cumulative worldwide production of the Super Cub series had reached 100 million units, making it the best-selling motor vehicle in history. Not just motorcycle, motor vehicle. If the story had stopped there, this would just be a cool footnote about a war-era motorcycle. But the Super Cub didn't just survive in Vietnam, it completely rewired the country's DNA. After the Doi Moi economic reforms of 1986 opened Vietnam to foreign investment, the motorcycle market took off. Honda Vietnam established its first factory at Vinh Phuc province in 1998, and production scaled rapidly. The original Super Cub evolved into the Honda Dream, a status symbol through the 80s and 90s, and then into the Honda Wave and Future, the affordable plastic-bodied commuter bikes you see flooding Vietnamese streets today. Honda now operates 3 motorcycle plants in Vietnam with a combined capacity of roughly 2.5 million units per year, employing around 8,000 people at their Vinh Phuc headquarters alone. And Honda's grip on this market is staggering. In their fiscal year ending March 2025, Honda Vietnam sold approximately 2.3 million motorcycles, capturing roughly 80% of the Vietnamese Motorcycle Manufacturers Association market. The total Vietnamese motorcycle market generated roughly $5.4 billion in revenue in 2024, according to Statista estimates. Honda doesn't just dominate Vietnam. Vietnam is one of Honda's most important markets on the planet. Now pay attention to this detail because it explains everything about why motorcycles took over so completely. The cheapest Honda Wave Alpha lists at about $700 to $880. The average Vietnamese worker earned roughly $300 to $340 per month in late 2024, depending on region and occupation, according to General Statistics Office data. That means an entry-level motorcycle costs about 2 to 3 months of average wages. A car, on the other hand, Vietnam slaps import taxes of 100 to 200% on automobiles. For many households, even an entry-level car represents multiple years of income. That 9% car ownership rate suddenly makes a lot of sense. When you can buy a motorbike for what an American spends on a gaming console, and a car costs more than most people earn in a year, the math does itself. And the Vietnamese didn't just adopt motorcycles as transportation, they turned them into an entire way of life. You've probably seen the photos. A man on a Honda Wave carrying what appears to be an entire furniture store on his back, 200 eggs stacked in baskets, a full-size refrigerator strapped sideways, live pigs, glass panes, 6-foot bookcases, rolls of barbed wire. UK photographer John Enoch documented Hanoi's delivery riders hauling everything from car parts to pet fish to blocks of ice in his series Bikes of Hanoi, which won gold at the Paris Photo Prize in 2019 and was shortlisted for the Sony World Photography Awards in 2020. Dutch photographer Hans Kemp has been cataloging the cargo bikes of Ho Chi Minh City since 1991, capturing riders balancing hundreds of fresh eggs, baskets of pig entrails, and industrial supplies. And it goes beyond cargo. Dogs ride on motorcycles in Vietnam the way dogs ride in SUVs in America. Cats sit in front baskets. Entire families pile onto a single scooter. In October 2024, a 19-year-old from Haiphong was filmed on Tran Duy Hung Street in Hanoi carrying 4 female passengers, 5 people total on one motorbike, none wearing helmets. He was fined 3 million dong, roughly $120. The motorcycle also spawned its own economy from the ground up. The XE motorbike taxi emerged in Saigon in the mid-1960s, when former American office workers started using their Hondas and Lambrettas for hire. For decades, XE drivers waited on fixed street corners, bargaining fares with passengers. It was the backbone of urban transportation, running at roughly 50 to 60% the cost of a regular taxi. Then technology showed up. Grab launched Grab Bike in Vietnam in October 2014 and quickly dominated the ride-hailing market, especially after Uber's 2018 exit from Southeast Asia. A 2025 Rakuten Insight survey found that Grab is the most frequently used ride-hailing brand among users in major Vietnamese cities. Indonesia's Gojek, which started as a tiny call center with just 20 ojek motorcycle taxi drivers in Jakarta back in 2010, entered Vietnam in 2018 as GoViet, Gojek's founder Nadim Makarim claimed the app captured 35% of Ho Chi Minh City's two-wheeler ride hailing market within weeks of launching, though independent estimates put their actual share much lower. Gojek never cracked Grab's dominance and quietly exited Vietnam entirely in September 2024. But it proved something important. Vietnam's motorcycle culture wasn't just ripe for disruption, it was a gold mine. The motorcycle wasn't just transportation anymore, it was a billion-dollar platform. Mobile food vendors operate from motorbike-mounted glass cases throughout Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, selling banh mi sandwiches and bowls of pho from the same bikes their families have run for decades. Some of these vendors, like the famous Banh Mi Huyen Hoa on Lê Thi Rieng Street in District 1, are identifiable by the scores of motorbikes parked out front at any given time. Wedding processions feature fleets of decorated motorcycles. Funeral processions wind through city streets with mourners following the hearse on two wheels, dropping votive papers and spare change along the route. The motorcycle culture became so iconic that it attracted international attention. The BBC Top Gear Vietnam special, which aired in December 2008, featured Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond, and James May riding roughly 1,000 miles from Ho Chi Minh City to Ha Long Bay on motorcycles purchased for less than $200 each. It remains one of the most watched Western depictions of Vietnamese motorcycle culture ever produced. Repair shops line practically every neighborhood street in Vietnam, with most residents living within a 15-minute ride of at least one mechanic. The secondhand market starts as low as $300 for a running bike. When your entire transportation infrastructure runs on two wheels, the ecosystem around it becomes massive. Parts suppliers, accessory shops, custom painters, tire vendors, and fuel stations all exist in densities you do not see anywhere else in the world. This is the part where things stopped being funny. That same motorcycle dependence that built Vietnam's economy also built something darker, a traffic fatality crisis. Vietnam's official data for 2023 recorded 21,880 road crashes, 11,498 deaths, and over 15,000 injuries. The World Health Organization's independent estimate puts the real number closer to 17,000 deaths annually, because many crashes outside police jurisdiction go unreported. According to Vietnam's National Traffic Safety Committee, motorcycles are the causing vehicle in roughly 60% of all crashes. And the World Health Organization's Global Status Report on Road Safety puts motorcycle riders at 57% of all reported traffic fatalities in Vietnam. When one type of vehicle accounts for more than half of all road deaths in your country, you don't have a traffic problem, you have a motorcycle problem. The 2007 mandatory helmet law helped. A study published in the journal PMC showed that motorcycle-related death rates in Cu Chi District dropped from roughly 24 per 100,000 in 2005 to about 11 per 100,000 by 2010 after the law took effect. But the sheer volume of bikes on the road still makes Vietnam one of the more dangerous places in the world for everyday motorcycle travel. And then there's the AIR. In January 2025, Hanoi briefly ranked as the most polluted city on planet Earth, with fine particulate matter hitting 266 micrograms per cubic meter, according to IQ Air. For context, the World Health Organization's annual guideline is 5 micrograms. That peak reading exceeded the World Health Organization annual standard by more than 50 times. The World Health Organization estimates that at least 70,000 deaths each year in Vietnam are linked to air pollution, according to its State of Global Air 2024 report. Millions of aging gas-powered motorcycles, pumping exhaust into narrow city streets for decades, will do that. So the Vietnamese government made a decision that would have sounded insane 10 years ago. If you're finding this useful, hit subscribe. We cover stories like this every week. So, we were talking about how Vietnam's government looked at 77 million gas motorcycles and decided enough was enough. In July 2025, Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh signed Directive Number 20, mandating that gas-powered motorbikes will be banned inside Hanoi's Ring Road 1, starting July 1st, 2026. That's not a decade from now, that's months away. The ban then expands to Ring Road 2 by January 2028 and Ring Road 3 by 2030. Ho Chi Minh City is studying a similar restriction. Hanoi has roughly 6.9 million motorbikes, and Ho Chi Minh City has around 8.3 million. By contrast, there are just 1.1 million cars in Hanoi and roughly 700,000 cars in Ho Chi Minh City. And the government is telling those riders that within a few years, they need to go electric or find another way to get around. Think about what that means on a human level. The XCOM drivers who've been working the same street corners for 20 years, the delivery riders who make maybe $8 to $10 a day on their aging Honda Waves, the street food vendors whose entire business model is a mobile kitchen bolted to a motorbike frame. For them, this isn't an environmental policy, it's an existential threat. A 2017 survey of over 15,000 Hanoi households reported 90% support for the ban. But reporting from Al Jazeera in August 2025 suggests that public opinion has shifted, with residents now closely divided, especially among the working-class riders whose livelihoods depend entirely on their gas-powered bikes. And this is where a Vietnamese company you might have heard of enters the picture: VinFast. Backed by Vietnam's largest private conglomerate, Vingroup, and its billionaire founder, Pham Nhat Vuong, VinFast has been aggressively pushing electric scooters into the Vietnamese market, and the numbers are real. According to VinFast's U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission filing in January 2026, the company delivered 406,453 electric scooters in Vietnam in 2025, roughly 5.7 times their 2024 volume. The entry-level VinFast Evo starts at about $880, with battery rental versions available for around $600. VinFast has rolled out 4,500 battery swap stations and is targeting 45,000 swap cabinets by early 2026, offering free charging at their V-Green stations through mid-2027. The battery swap rollout is central to their strategy. Honda, meanwhile, has not been sitting still. They launched their Icon E and CUV-E electric scooters in Vietnam in 2025, entering an electric market they have historically been slow to address. But VinFast's head start on battery swap infrastructure has created a network effect that competitors are struggling to match. Some critics are not buying the clean air narrative entirely. An Australian National University researcher, Han Nguyen, told Al Jazeera that the government directive looks a lot like industrial policy designed to benefit VinFast. Whether that is fair or not, the timing is suspiciously convenient for Vietnam's national EV champion. The reality is that massive obstacles remain between the directive and the actual streets of Hanoi. The city has just 140 bus lines, serving roughly 31% of commuter demand. Ho Chi Minh City's Metro Line 1 only opened in late 2024, and it covers a single route. The power grid is inconsistent, particularly during summer peak loads. And there are an estimated 7 million gas bikes in Hanoi alone that need to be replaced, retired, or banned in under 5 years. This is a massive logistical challenge. The Japan International Cooperation Agency has estimated that traffic congestion already costs Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City between 2 and 3% of GDP annually, and a botched transition could make that number far worse before it gets better. Indonesia, by comparison, has 132 million motorcycles, giving it the largest motorcycle fleet on Earth. Two-wheelers account for 84% of all vehicles on Indonesian roads, and Honda controls roughly 74% of that market through their Astra Honda motor joint venture. Taiwan holds the record for the highest motorcycle density per capita anywhere on the planet, with roughly 14 million bikes for 23 million people, which works out to about 2 motorcycles for every 3 citizens. Both countries face similar pollution and safety challenges. Indonesia's national police recorded over 131,000 traffic accidents in 2022, with 74% involving motorcycles. But neither Indonesia nor Taiwan has attempted anything as dramatic as a blanket ban on gas bikes from a major capital city. Vietnam is running an experiment that no country this dependent on motorcycles has ever tried before: a coordinated ban on gas bikes, support for a domestic EV champion, and a massive battery swap infrastructure rollout, all happening simultaneously. The Honda Super Cub arrived in Vietnam strapped to the side of American military cargo in 1967. It survived a war, an embargo, and decades of improvised repairs by mechanics who fabricated parts that Honda never designed. It transformed a nation of bicycle riders into the motorcycle capital of the world. It created a $5 billion industry, a ride-hailing revolution, and a way of life that defines Vietnamese identity as much as pho or ao dai. The Super Cub helped make that happen. 70,000 deaths a year from air pollution means something has to change. 11,000 traffic fatalities mean the status quo is not working. And VinFast's 400,000 electric scooters say the replacement technology exists. The real question is not whether Vietnam can ban gas motorcycles from Hanoi. They have signed the directive. The deadline is set. The Ring Road 1 ban takes effect in weeks. The real question is whether you can take away 77 million motorcycles from a country that built its entire modern identity on top of them and still have that country feel like Vietnam on the other side.